Hello. About a week ago, I got a message from a subscriber asking me if I wanted to make a video about the abortion discussion that was going on in New York State. I took a look at the issue on the internet and discovered that in the New York situation, it was a late-term abortion law that was apparently constructed to come into force only in situations where the mother's life was in danger. I immediately thought of the film The Cardinal, which is, I don't know how many of you know it, but it follows the life of a young priest up until the moment he is appointed a cardinal, and all the incidents that happened to him during the progress of his career. And one of the definitive parts of the plot was his awkward relationship with his sister, who got herself pregnant. And this was in the 1920s in New York. And even in New York in the 1920s or the early 30s, it was not acceptable for an unmarried girl to get herself pregnant. However, she went through with the pregnancy, and then, as it turns out, she was not physically able to give birth to the baby. Her pelvis was too narrow, and the doctors told her brother, the young priest, who was her legal next of kin, that there was only one way to save her life, and that was by crushing the baby's head so that they could get the dead baby out of her. And the priest refused to give them permission because of some rule about not saving one person at the expense of another. I don't know the exact wording of it, but it was to that effect. And the sister died. And the baby was saved. But you do wonder how much of the priest's decision had to do with the Catholic rules and how much had to do with the fact that he did not have a good relationship with his sister. And she was a lost soul anyway, whereas the baby could be brought up a good Catholic. I mean, there was always that in the background. Now, if there had been, at the time, a late-term abortion law, then the doctors would not have to ask the legal next of kin for such permission. They would have simply gone ahead and aborted the baby, killed a late-term baby to save the mother. And that's more or less what I thought was going on. So I decided I wasn't going to make a video about it. Abortion is an extremely emotive subject anyway, and I know that whatever I say about it, yay or nay, whether I believe that it should happen or shouldn't happen, or whether I'm somewhere in the middle, there's going to be some sort of dogpile. However, recent events have forced me into saying something. But I have to say that I do think that abortion should be legal, because women will go to the most terrible lengths to terminate an unwanted pregnancy. But there has to be a limit on this sort of abortion. Not so much for the woman, and possibly not even for the baby, but for the medical practitioners who have to perform that sort of an operation. I don't think too many people think of the effects of doing that to a baby that looks like a baby, even if it's not really viable outside the womb. The effect this is going to have on the people who actually perform the operation, who actually see the body. Generally speaking, I think most women who have the abortion, they don't see what's taken out of them, but the doctors and the nurses do, and this is not good for their spiritual health. So you have to consider them as well. I don't think enough people do that. But you know how the internet gets whipped up, and there are all sorts of exaggerations. The Covington thing is a very good example of a sort of Chinese whispers or telephone game sort of situation that we see where things get worse and worse in the retelling. But then I saw this and my jaw just dropped.
This place fancies itself the world's greatest deliberative body, but we would be deceiving ourselves if we ignored the biggest debate that's been happening in America over the last 36 hours. A public elected official, the governor of one of the 50 states, has been defending a practice that is morally repugnant. The governor of Virginia, if the mother is in labor, the infant would be delivered. The infant would be kept comfortable. The infant would be resuscitated, if that's what the mother and the family desired. And then a discussion would ensue between the physician and the mother. Let's be really clear about what we're talking about here. We're talking about fourth trimester abortion, or what anyone in the normal world calls infanticide. That's what we're talking about.
What? So that's what all the fuss about Virginia is about. And that's why there are so many Democrat supporters pumping this blackface red herring, if you can say such a thing, instead of actually looking at what this Northam guy is saying. How did you get to that state? This is just discussing killing a live baby, a full-term baby. What do you mean they'll have a discussion with the mother? What the hell are you playing at over there? We'll go back to that anti-Semitism thing that I did in the last but one video. One of the reasons the Romans despised the Jews so much was that they refused to kill their newborn children, whether their economic circumstances or medical circumstances called for it, according to the Roman way of reckoning things. I read the words of some Roman who wrote that the Jews were so morally warped that they wouldn't even expose the defective ones. This was a habit the Christians later followed, by the way. Well, it looks like we've hit that one out of the park, doesn't it? Anyway, I thought of this book, The End of an Age, by, what's his name? William Ing, I think his name was. He was the Dean of St. Paul's. William Ralph Ing. And he was talking about infanticide, and he was saying it was said by the Greeks that before the Trojan War, the world was too full of people. And the danger was met by colonization, but when emigration couldn't happen, the Greeks kept down their numbers partly by wars and civic massacres, and partly by female infanticide. Very few Greeks reared more than one daughter. And what happened in Greece in the Hellenistic age may seem to give some support to those who fear depopulation in modern Europe. Ing wrote this in 1948. The man was a prophet. Anyway, he just as a matter of interest, he says, depopulation is a rare phenomenon, but there have been instances. The Guanches of the Canaries are said to have committed race suicide. And Stevenson, who studied the conditions in the South Sea Islands, found that the inhabitants of the Marquesas are becoming extinct from want of births. Well, you see, it's happened before. Something seems to get a hold of a civilization, if you can call this in any way a civilization, and they start murdering themselves, literally. Anyway, that's William Ing. I'll try and take a scan of that and put it up here, but maybe it's an old book. I'm a bit worried about crushing it on the scanner. Okay, so meanwhile, the SJWs are all exercised about a comment Liam Neeson made. And you know what? I'll do a separate video about that. Meanwhile, back to babies. I think one of the worst aspects of this is the blurring of lines, and I'm afraid it's the fault of people like Ben Shapiro. He has always referred to abortion at any stage of a pregnancy as killing little babies. Now, as I say, I'm probably going to get another dog pound for that, but no, it isn't. Early term abortion is not killing little babies. Yes, you are stopping a pregnancy. You are stopping a potential baby, but the fact is there are many babies who die in utero within the first 4 months of pregnancy anyway. I'm with V on that one. When abortion is not permitted, desperate women go to great lengths to rid themselves of unwanted pregnancies. They sometimes abort, they sometimes manage to do that, but more often than that, they damage themselves or they damage the developing fetuses. It's not reasonable when we have the medical ability to remove a pregnancy in the first trimester that we should ignore it. Now, people of the Ben Shapiro persuasion will say, that's not removing a pregnancy, it's murdering a baby, and I don't think it is. And further, I want to say that by saying that, you're then redefining the whole pregnancy and making the baby a baby from the first blob of cells to the moment of birth. So then, if you have that definition, where do you define the point of death? Well, the answer is with that stinker in Virginia who can, with a straight face, discuss the murder of a baby living and breathing on a hospital table. And although Shapiro is supposed to be good with words and makes much of the fact that he's careful with definitions, that's where his emotive description has led us, or at least led some Americans. Come back, you guys. We all know what happened to the Roman Empire, don't we? Thanks for listening. Please like and subscribe. And if you wish to donate, it's through PayPal at graniopteryx@gmail.com. Till next time.